and I'll be keeping my introductions brief so we can actually spend more time on the actual session and discussion. First of all, wanted to welcome everyone and thank you all for joining today's fireside chat, which is on celebrating Asian women in corporate America, presented by FAIA and AlixPartners. So let me start with a fun fact about today's event. FAIA had our first introductory meeting with Alex less than about a month or so back. And we were talking about doing events together. And true to our Ford Plus principles, here we are today, moving at market speed and in a true agile fashion. So May is the Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the United States. And in honor of this month, we are having a series of virtual events highlighting the contributions made by Asian Americans to Ford Motor Company and their communities. I'm truly excited about today's unique event where the special partnership with Ford and AlixPartners. Few words about AlixPartners. They're a global management consulting firm with 25 offices and more than 2,200 employees globally. They work with clients all over the world in performance improvement, restructuring, risk mitigation, and business transformation, and several more. A couple of words about FAIA. FAIA is one of the 11 ERGs at Ford, one of the oldest and largest, and it's our 26th year in existence. We have 3 pillars: brand promotion, where we promote the Ford brand in the Asian population, both here in North America and in India. People development, where we develop our bottom line by strong leadership and corporate citizenship, where we are enhancing Ford's presence in the community through volunteer activity. So FAIA today is partnering with Align and We Matters, 2 of AlixPartners' prominent ERG, to bring this event. Align stands for Asian Leadership Insights and Growth Network, and We Matters stands for Women Empowerment Matters. And one thing I was looking, which I found amazing, is 64% of all AlixPartners employees are part of at least one of their 8 ERGs. And they're focused on developing strategic long-term relationship with other ERGs, exchanging ideas and different perspectives as well. And now it's my privilege and honor to have Mark Wakefield, the Managing Director, AlixPartners, to kick off today's event. He's going to say a few words. But before that, introducing Mark, he co-leads the global automotive and industrial practice at AlixPartners. He spent his career in automotive and worked at Magna International, McKinsey, and HSBC. He's a business leader, passionate about improving DEI at the workplace, especially in recruiting and career development and other underrepresented groups. So over to you, Mark.
All right. Well, thanks, Sri. Appreciate it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. All right. Great. Thanks. So thanks for having this opportunity to talk with you guys. I'm really excited to hear this. We do try to make sure all voices are heard, but it's in things like this where you can learn so much. When I participated in these in the past, I always am amazed with how much I've come away from. So I want to congratulate Ford for the AAPI Heritage Month. I think that's a fantastic idea, and I think it's something we haven't made enough of in AlixPartners, of making more than just event-based recognition. So I was very excited about this event too, because in the past I learned things like I should not be referring to my colleague who set this up as Yvette Zhang. I should instead be saying Zhang Ying for telling her. And it's one of these things where obliviously and clumsily I've gone about the last 3 years calling her Yvette Zhang without ever really stopping to think, or unfortunately not stopping to ask. And so it's those kinds of eye-opening things that even well-intentioned people need to hear. And so I'm really eager to hear more of the stories. I want to foster a place in AlixPartners that people can feel fulfilled. You know, it's not a work-life balance because there's just life. Work is a part of it. It's not everything of it. And people have to feel fulfilled and to thrive in that. And so I've learned a lot in the past ones. I'm eager to learn more from this. I've been very impressed with some of the people in Ford that I've worked with that are open on these topics. So I'm here to listen, and thanks for everyone for setting this up.
All right. Thank you, Mark, for kicking us off and for all your support and for reaching us to the ERGs at Ford. That really got the ball rolling for today's event. Now, for the much awaited part of today's discussion is the fireside chat. It's my pleasure to introduce our truly diverse panel with wonderful speakers whom we have for you today. So quick introduction, we have Prima Patel-Rinke, Director of North American Supply and Chain, Brakes, Suspension and Steering from Ford Motor Company. We have Lisa Shett, she's the Manager of VESC Budget and Operations from Ford. We have Glennie Chayadi, she's the Manager of IT Global Strategy from Ford Motor Credit Company. We have Yvette Zhang, who's the Director in AlixPartners. And we have Sonal Odedra. She's the Strategic Finance Manager from AlixPartners. Now, before I give the stage to Prima, I'd like to say a few words about today's fireside chat. She's going to talk about why we are here today and what to expect. But before that, wanted to remind everyone that everyone is muted on entry. And please use the chat functionality to provide your questions. We already have a set of pre-submitted questions, which we'll be kicking it off, and we'll be asking questions on the chat towards the end of the session. So with that, over to you, Prima.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mark, for kicking us off. And Shri and Yvette, I will say I have a special thanks. As Shri mentioned, less than a month ago, we had this idea. But I've just recently been thinking quite a bit with FAIA. And in my mind, I think we have an even greater opportunity here at Ford. I think there are significant opportunities for networking, from learning from each other, from feeling more comfortable in who we are. Mark, I really liked how you mentioned this is just life and work is a part of it. That is absolutely critical. And I think as Asians and as Asian women, I do think we bring unique things to the workplace. I do believe that we juggle quite a bit behind what I would call closed doors. I'm not sure that we bring our whole selves to work. And I wanted to start a series. This is our kickoff. So thank you, Shri, for finding the right opportunity. But really the vision here is to create a network and to share our stories and to learn from each other, and to find success stories and to recognize what I find a lot is the feeling of, am I alone? Am I the only one balancing, doing, managing? You're not alone. And I am very excited to kick this series off with this great group of women to help support and grow together. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, Prima. So let's jump in. Just want to open up the stage. So talking about Asian leaders and female leaders. So what was your first aha moment for you as a female leader? If anyone can kick us off.
Yeah, I can take this question. And again, first of all, thanks for everyone who put the efforts and put this together. Thanks for the sponsorship, Mark and Shri, to make this happen. And maybe a little bit more introduction about myself. I'm Yvette Zhang. I'm director from AlixPartners and based in New York. I've been serving clients mostly in auto and industrial sectors. And in addition to the consulting role, I'm also the global leader of ALIGN, Shri just mentioned. And it's just it's a great honor for me to be on the panel today. And when I was talking to Lisa and Prima and Glennie during the planning stage, I was like really I was one of those that being really mostly inspired that we should put this together and present this to not only just the female leaders or potential leaders, but also our allies. And if I want to reflect a little back or think about some aha moment myself, people who know me might know that from my whole career progress, I worked for consulting firms and also auto and industrial corporates. All of those are actually in the male-dominated workplace. And, but to me, it's actually never bothered me until there's one day when I was working for companies right after my B school, and actually I was in Ross B school, Ross Business School of Michigan, to attend a women leadership conference on behalf of companies. And I remember there's a female student coming up to me asking me, so do you feel uncomfortable when you were surrounded by all the males at the workplace? To be honest, that's the first time I realized I was in that type of situation. But do you guys know how I answered that question? And I actually took I reflect myself on the spot, and I was like, to be honest, that felt great. Because I owned my place, I owned my seat on the table. Especially during those, senior leaders staffing meeting, there were 20 people, and all of them, like 19 people are male plus me, and they respect me. They want to listen to me. What are the recommendations coming from my work? So I just want to, I told that student on the spot about this, this whole, my thought and the thinking process there. And I really want to encourage and inspire our female colleagues, no matter which positions you are, really just step out of your own comfort zone and be more confident and be proud of ourselves being women, even though we are different from others in the workplace.
Great, thank you. So the other topic, which is interesting and it's in everyone's mind, how has our Asian culture, how has culture impacted our success at work?
Shri, I can take this one. So once again, you guys, thank you all for joining us today. As everyone mentioned, we are extremely excited to be bringing this forward and appreciate all the collaboration that has gone into hosting this for all of you today. So our Asian culture is so rich with traditions. We have century-old festivals, music, and dance, and this is really who we are. It's a sense of community. One thing that we see across all Asian countries is the sense of community. And it doesn't matter whether we are coming together to celebrate something or help someone who needs some assistance or even to solve a problem. We are there to make it happen. And as Asian women, we bring this to our workforce. It is who we are. We excel not only at building teams, but we nourish the teams to make sure that our teammates are okay. We're adaptable, we're resilient. And one thing that I see across the board in Asian women is that we're able to juggle. We can wear multiple hats, and probably because all of us, we multitask. And we wear those different hats. So we have to be resilient and flexible. And we can be the team leader if the team needs it, or we could even be the team member. Whatever the team needs, we are able to jump in and make sure that it happens. So while we're nourishing the teams, we're not only passionate about making sure our teams are okay, but really we're passionate about driving for results and making sure that we deliver as we need to. So personally for me, I was born and raised in Michigan. I'm a first generation Indian American, second generation Ford family. And a while ago, I was asked to collaborate with another company. We had a very small cross-functional team. We had extremely aggressive deliverables we had to do. And it was amazing. Within a very short amount of time, we were able to come together as a team and deliver what we had to do. And I really credit how I was able to jump into the team and how I was able to help the team with my Asian background. At the end of the day, we are unique. We bring different things to the table, and we have to celebrate what makes us different.
Thanks, Lisa.
Maybe Shri, if I could very quickly, add on to that. So it's really interesting because I would say I'm going to connect maybe what Yvette talked about in her aha moment and what Lisa just talked about. I'll liken it to this. I don't generally realize how short I am until I'm standing in a mirror next to someone else. So I don't walk around feeling like I'm short or I'm small, but there have been times where I'll walk into an elevator and I'm generally with men and they're much taller than me. And I look at them, I'm like, whoa, who's that? And I don't realize how small I am. So similarly, I've run my career and I haven't spent a lot of time truthfully saying I'm different. So I don't feel like I'm sitting at the table. And I didn't spend a lot of time in my career recognizing that I'm the only one, whether it was because I was female or whether it was because I'm a first generation Indian, just like Lisa. But I will say, as I have progressed in my career, for some reason, I have noticed it more. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that, right, I've succeeded in my mind to a certain degree because I wasn't different. But recently, I'd say I'd spend a lot more time reflecting. And in that reflection, a lot of what Lisa just talked about comes out. Why am I the way that I am, right? Why am I the reliable one? Why do I find that I am people think that I'm trustworthy? Why, when something needs to get done, it's not a bad thing, but okay, give it to Prima, it'll get done. It's a good thing. But as you reflect on all of these things, you start realizing a lot of that is because of the way I was raised. It was because of the culture that I come from. So it's very interesting, right? Like when you start realizing who you are, why you are who you are, it does allow you to bring about and to have that open discussion and connect with others and recognizing why there's just so many common traits.
Yep. Great add, Prima. So the next interesting thing which we hear all the time are about the challenges, right? What kind of challenges are there in the workplace due to your culture? And if yes, if you face challenges, what are like the key strategies to overcome these challenges?
I can share a challenge that I face because of my culture. So I grew up in Indonesia, and the culture there growing up is we never talk about our accomplishments. My mom never talked about me to other parents, and we're just heads down, no matter what happened. We will celebrate it together as a family, but my mom always said, like, oh, don't talk about it to other people. It's not good. But she'll still tell me that she's proud of me, but she never shared it with other people. So I carried that throughout. And early in my career, I don't talk about what I do to other people because I thought, well, they're not interested, and that doesn't sound good, and that's a cultural faux pas. And then I start observing that the people around me do talk about what they are working on. Sometimes as simple as sharing, hey, this is a cool project that I'm working on, and hey, I just completed this, and I'm so proud that I learned these new things. And what I find is that when I hear them share their accomplishments, I cheer them on. Like it really inspires me. It makes me want to connect them with resources that I know, maybe with like other people who are working in similar projects, maybe like a book that I just read that's similar to the topic that they know. And then, but it's still like just stay in my head, and I'm largely a quiet person, don't really talk about anything, which makes it really hard for me to write my key accomplishments at the end of the year, my objectives and having that performance review. Something that changed it significantly in my head is a workshop called I Am Remarkable. It's a workshop from Google that is being rolled out through Ford Enterprise for the past 3 years, and we're still rolling it out right now. And I Am Remarkable is a workshop to help us be comfortable with sharing our accomplishments, be comfortable with sharing what we did, and to realize that it's not bragging if it's based on fact. And I was really inspired by that workshop so much that I became a facilitator for it. And through facilitating multiple workshops, I was really inspired by a lot of other people who are owning up their accomplishment. So some key things that really changed me is that first, well, if you're able, take that workshop. It's a really great investment. It's only about 90 minutes and it's a great investment for you. Two, take baby steps in talking about accomplishments. Something that I tried after taking that workshop is when I introduce myself in a meeting, I tend to hide behind title. Title sounds so nice and so safe, but I start saying, here's what I'm contributing. Here's the project that I'm working on. I'm leading this global team of such and such, like trying to shape my introduction to show what I do. And then I found that, all right, I'm getting more comfortable talking about myself. And then in my mentoring relationship, again, safe space 101, I start being able to say, here's some of the things that I've been working on since the last time I saw you. Or here's a project that I'm working on, and here's something that I'm trying to accomplish, and here's how it went. And then I learned it didn't go too bad. My mentor reacted positively, and they tend to try to help me succeed more. And then I start challenging myself to see how can I state this out loud, maybe by submitting stories into newsletters, like in a team newsletters, maybe by sharing it in a group and sharing the stories wider and wider. And I find that the more that we exercise this muscle, the better I get. And so if any of you feel uncomfortable about sharing your accomplishment, start small. Start by looking into what is it that you're contributing in your organization and introduce yourself that way. And then building it up in a safe environment and eventually into a bigger audience. And I really find that despite my upbringing, I can shift my perspective, and that makes it a lot easier for me to then coach others to do so as well. And it makes it so much easier during performance reviews and when the stake is higher in interviews or when talking to my boss about my accomplishments.
Really good point. Thanks, Glennie. And several people are echoing the same sentiments on the chat, right? So being humble and downplaying our accomplishments is how we are raised as Asians. So great point there. So several questions, right? Coming through the chat, but the next one I want to ask is, what kind of suggestions do we want to give the Asian female audience at work today?
Let me try that. Start that conversation off. So, a little bit about myself. So, I wasn't born in Michigan, but I was definitely raised in Michigan. I am a first-generation Indian woman. I introduce myself as I am a mother, I am a wife, and I'm a professional. I am more than what I do at Ford Motor Company, and I'm more than just a mom. So that's my background. I joined Ford. Can't believe I'm going to say this with 100 people because I never do, but I'll just say 20 plus years ago. And I never would have imagined that I'm still here, that I would still be here. I never walked into Ford with a thought process that I would have a career at Ford Motor Company. I'd actually moved around quite a bit prior to coming to Ford. But I attribute that to a couple of different things. And I'm gonna use some words that I'm going to use some of the thought process that Glennie just talked about. So typically I would say I've been at Ford because I've been given the opportunity. I'm going to say it a little bit different. I'm still at Ford because I've been able to pursue the opportunities that I've wanted, and I've been supported by constituents at Ford Motor Company. It takes practice to do what Glennie talked about just now, a lot of practice, because it is so very unnatural for us to talk about what I've done, what I've contributed. So thank you for Glennie for bringing that point up. So my suggestion, I'll build on what I talked about before. This is my suggestion to Asian women. We use this term quite a bit here in America. When we have people that have children, we say it takes a village. I'm going to liken that and bring that to work. It takes a village. Just like it takes a village to manage everything that we do when we're not spending time in our corporate lives, it takes a village internally as well. Sometimes we call that a village a network. Sometimes we rely on our ERG groups. Sometimes we have a mentor. My recommendation is this. It's twofold. Create a village of people like you, so that you can share your triumphs, your successes, your tricks of the trade, and a place where you feel like you can say, I just need to sigh, I'm going through this, and that person can relate to you. But just as important, create a village of people that are nothing like you, because that's where you're going to grow. That's where you learn from others. That's where you get the opportunity to share your stories. I'd say I'm not one to ever say that I would change something or I regret something. But I will say that I wish I would have created the village of those like me at Ford. I think I've done a very good job based on the environment that I'm in of creating the village of people not like me. And so in the position that I'm in, I'm very committed to ensuring that the next gen, that the people around us, that we can create those villages, because I believe that those villages, whether informal or formal, is what's going to get you to the next level, whatever that is in your life.
May I chime in here a little bit as well? That's very inspiring, Prima. And I actually want to build on maybe a little bit on Granny's story earlier about, practice and step out of your comfort zone, right? I want to share one story, if I could give one suggestion to Asian female or just female in general. I remember one of the reunion events, I went back to my B school 5 years ago at Kellogg, and the professor were talking about, I think that's a negotiation class. And the professor gave us one question, and I remember it so vividly even today. She said, let's say there's a job description. There are 5 criteria on it. So guess when a woman will apply for the job and when a man will apply for the job. Let me just release what you guys could do the thinking, but the general or on average, women will only apply for the job when you meet 6 criteria, maybe, right? Because you think, oh, I'm not good enough. Well, they asked for 5 years. Maybe that's like a job for 7 years experience in it. But guess how many criteria does a guy need to meet when he applied for the job? Maybe 0. Maybe 0. That will be just, I want this job. Yeah. Right? So that's the thing, I remember that story so vividly, and always give other, junior females who are ambitious, who wants to, make difference. Just remember that and think about whenever you feel hesitant or not confident enough, think about how a guy will react to it and behave like that.
Yeah, I've got a likening to that, Yvette. So, and this is maybe we'll just keep building on suggestions, Tree, if that's okay.
Fine.
And it's a work in process, all of these things, right? I don't know if people realize it is an active battle for especially Asian women, to say to not feel like it's a negative to talk about your accomplishments. It just doesn't happen. It is a very uncomfortable feeling to say, I did this and I did that. All right. The other thing I want to build on is, how many times have you sat in a meeting and you feel like maybe you're doing a lot of listening, and your brain, it's going, and there's lots of things that you want to say. There's tons of input that you want to give, but you hold back, and you hold back because you're like, well, do I know everything? Do I know all the facts? What if, and then the meeting's over. And everyone doesn't recognize, one, I think there are some leaders that do an amazing job of going around the table before giving an opinion and making sure and trying to engage, right? So that's one thing that we can do, but we've got to find a way to get out of our, what I call our own heads, right? We don't need to be perfect. You know, I don't know, maybe we can do a raise of hands. How many of us were raised? I'll be very honest, it's taken a lot for me to recognize. When I brought home an A, the question was, why is it not an A+? It wasn't good job on the A. It was, why wasn't it an A+? When I got a 4 point, the question wasn't, or the comment wasn't, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. It was, why didn't you get a 4.2? So I was raised in an environment, and I do think, you know, we have to admit it is our culture to a certain degree. I don't blame our culture, but we just need to recognize, right? We're always pushing to be better, to improve. But that leaves us with, especially females, a feeling of always having to be perfect. That feeling of always having to be perfect in the corporate world doesn't work for us. It works against us. We give up opportunities. We give up our voices at the table because we're so concerned with saying the right thing all the time in the right way, because perfectionism is the expectation that we've been given and how we've been raised. It's a battle. It's a battle that I still fight. I fight it every day. But the first step is recognizing, right, that that's what's happening, and then literally talking to your head and saying, stop, just speak. Just speak.
So building on your...
Be brave.
Oh, go ahead, Prima.
No, I'm just going to, so be brave and just speak.
So building on your point, Prima, a very concrete way that mindset has been impacting my career is that it's really hard for me to shift my mindset to be iterative, to be agile. And that's what we're supposed to be right now. We're supposed to be agile, and it's supposed to be iterative. And it is very hard for me to come out with a draft and share that with my people leader and saying, here's what I'm thinking about. It's not the full product yet. And my comfort zone is always making the most beautiful product before sharing it with my people leader. And by doing so, I might misinterpret requirements, or I might miss in the timing, and it might take too long that now that product is no longer needed. So really think about it. And when something like that happens, when you have an assignment, something that I specifically try to do is, let me send you the first draft, and I will be iterative to get your feedback and to work on it. And it requires you to be aware of it so that you can do that. And it requires you to communicate that to your people leader to set that expectation. But it really can help change the way that you work and the way that your speed of delivery is being perceived, as well as your quality of delivery, because then you can adjust your delivery to what the assignment is morphing into. So thank you for bringing that point, Prima.
To piggyback off of that, I absolutely resonate with what you guys said. I am often so much in the weeds that I want to make sure that something is, forget the 80-20. I want to make sure it's 95-5 or even 99-1 before I will release the data, or even before I review it. So as you guys said, it is a conscious effort that I literally have to talk to myself as well, saying 80-20, you got to get it out there to make sure this is what is needed. A really good piece of advice that I received a while ago was, I have this habit of using just when I speak. I'm just doing this, or I'm just working on that. And I was coached by my mentor, and I love this piece of advice, that don't use the word just, because you are diminishing how hard you have worked on something and how difficult that project may be. So that's one thing I want to share with you is whether you're communicating in a conversation or you're writing an email, it's okay to be upfront and say, these were the steps I took. It's okay to say, yes, the initial assumption was we thought it was going to take an hour, but it ended up taking us 10 hours. You have to be upfront and honest about the time you spent and the difficulty of what you did. And that's something, for me personally, I struggle with that so much. So that's one piece of advice that I've learned over the years.
Great point. I know we are having a wonderful discussion, but have to move on to the next question. But before I do that, a lot of the comments on the chat, people agreeing and relating to whatever has been said, right? Especially Prima, the thing which hit me was, I'm on the same boat as you are. When we get a 4.0, it's like, why not a 4.2, right? Or something on those lines.
Oh.
So, yeah, Lisa, you just touched upon advice. And so I want to kind of build on that. So talking about success strategies, what are your success strategies and how would you recommend using your success strategies to inspire others? Sonal, you're on mute if you're talking.
Sorry, 2.5 years into it, we still run into that. So, with success strategies, I think a lot of my thoughts resonate with everything that, my fellow panelists have shared. And my background has been a little different. So I am an Asian female. I'm a third generation Indian born in Kenya. So I've got a little bit of African experience in terms of culture, and even the socioeconomic factor plays really a big part in my experiences. What I would say in terms of my successes and what I would share to inspire everybody is, just putting it in a very general comment is, take a risk. And that's what we've been sharing amongst ourselves, the last few minutes is don't be afraid to take a risk, and believe in yourself. Those are two things that I've really believed in and that have helped me to get through professionally and even personally. When we talk about families and we talk about, Prima, to your point, when my teenagers come home and, they get the grades and it's, yeah, so, you got an 88%, what happened? Why wasn't that what caused you not to get the 99? So that changes your perspective, a lot of times. And thinking about your workplace and your team and the village that you talk about, Prima, you don't have to make it perfect. You don't have to, it's not on you. It's a team effort. You have people around you that can be supportive, that can be helpful, and reach out is the other thing that I would say is networking. Reach out, share your stories, share your experiences, because that will help everybody else do the same. And the more we learn about each other, the more we understand each other, and that helps us progress and succeed in what we do.
All right. Thanks, Sonal. Looks like I got kicked off my computer because of a reboot or something, so I'm joined through the phone. All these tech issues happen only when it's absolutely needed, right? So some of the other discussion points, right? What people wanted to hear more on is, can we talk about what makes us unique and special?
You know what I think makes us unique and special? I think we are extremely driven as a culture for success. but we're also equally compassionate. So my point of view is, yes, we are very driven. We want to be successful. It's within us. It's how we were raised. But I think this thing at Ford about caring for each other, that's just that I always say is, I'm confused as to why that's a discussion point. Isn't that what you just do? So I think we're unique in that caring for each other is just ingrained in who we are, and being driven is equally as important. They're on the same playing field, and I do think that that's unique.
Something that really impressed on me in observing the Indian community since I moved into the U.S. and start having Indian friends and then later on Indian colleagues is how community-minded the Indian people are. Like wherever I go, when I was in college, when I meet an Indian friend, they will have like the freshmen. They already have a group who pick the freshmen from the airport and have their own places. They organize like a grocery store trip together to Indian grocery. There's like a whole community. And when I joined Ford, there's a whole Indian community for the new hires, for the mid-careers. There's these ERGs. Wherever I go, there's that very strong sense of community. And it seems to me that whenever I talk to somebody, like all of the Indians know each other. And it's really great to see the connectiveness, the village, and how inclusive that community is. When I was in ITO, I was the Indian group like pulled me and we do an Indian traditional dance. Me not knowing anything about Indian traditional dance, we did dandiya, and then we rent out a costume and then we had fun. It's just really amazing, and that's something that's your strength. It's really wonderful to be so community-minded, so inclusive, and so supportive with each other. And it's so important in so many different ways from your career perspective, but also in your well-being and caring for each other perspective.
Right. Thanks. Anyone else wants to chime in?
I can share a little bit about the community aspect of being at work. So having lived on 3 different continents in my life, one thing I have realized is no matter where you are, there is a community. You could be in Europe, you could be in Africa, you could be in Asia, you can be here in the States, and there is a community. It's a different type of community, but there's always a community. And to be able to share about ourselves and about our accomplishments and about our experiences, I think helps bring that community together, regardless of what background of each person that you're talking to or you're working with is. So I think it's really important to understand that we have it subconsciously or culturally. We have that need for that community and to create that village and and to get along and help each other out, and just expand it beyond just the Asian group or the Indian group, because everybody, I don't think there's one person that I've come across who doesn't like being a part of a community, even if it's at work.
So now I have a funny story to add to what you were just saying. And once again, what you said absolutely resonates with me. So when I first joined Ford, it was right out of college. I joined as an FCG. And as I said earlier, I was born and raised here. So I got to work. I was my early 20s. And I started working with people who were my dad's friend, my parents' friends. So I would see them on the weekends. And my biggest challenge was, how do I address them? Because in the Indian community, you address them as uncle and auntie. So for me, it was uncle and auntie. And then all of a sudden I saw them in a work environment and I did not know how to address them. So for the first week, I actually avoided them. And a few of them, actually, we were all in the same department. And I was so grateful for the coaching that I received from one of the uncles. He pulled me aside and he said, Lisa, you're here at work. At work, this is work. So you need to address us by our first name. Don't tiptoe around it. We are equals at work. And as I reflected on that over the years, I really, truly appreciated how he was able to draw boundaries that, yes, we have a strong community outside and that's a personal community, but in the office, we are another community and there's different ways to address it. And for me, it was funny and I absolutely appreciated how he recognized that I was struggling and drew those boundaries so that I was able to comfortably navigate that. And I've shared that advice with other young FCGs who are caught in the same predicament. And it's something that a lot of us have faced growing up here.
I still find myself in that same predicament with some folks that have retired, and I see them in a social environment. I'm like, oh gosh, you're my mom and dad's friend, and I need to. It's an odd place to be, right? Because we see them socially, and we live in a respectful culture. Everybody is uncle or auntie, and I'll even take that to the next level. When I first started at Ford, right, I think most of us as Asians, elders are respected, period. It doesn't matter if you don't agree, if you disagree, elders are the ultimate people to respect. So you come in as a 20-year-old, and I struggled with, well, I can't disagree with them. They're my elder. No, you're in a workplace where age doesn't matter, but still hierarchy does. And elders is a hierarchy that we're used to in Asian cultures. So I very much struggled with, well, they're higher up than me, so I got to zip it. And it takes a lot to work through that. I can't tell you that, I've 100% worked through that, right? If it's a group of leaders, I'm very different. And it's a personal struggle to realize, like, you can have a voice at the table, but culturally, you just don't do it. And it's unique.
So, Prima, I want to ask you a question then. What can we do as leaders, and what are the leaders that, in your experience, to make it comfortable for people to voice their thoughts, especially when there's that cultural difference and there's that age difference and hierarchical difference?
So I think the first thing is awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to put Mark on the spot, and you don't have to answer, but I'll be honest, like, does a non-Asian recognize that when an Asian's in a room, that's what they're thinking? They don't know. Why would you know that, right? So it's our responsibility to share our stories, right? To help people understand why we think the way we think and why we are the way we are and the struggles that we go through. So my first advice is, right, the good thing is, as we move up, as we are leaders in a table, right, it's much easier to reflect on yourself and your own experiences and then to act differently, right? So I have Asian women on my team. I know they're very quiet, and I pull on them. I purposely will say, what do you think? I will purposely say things like, I'm just sharing my point of view. It's not right. It's just my point of view. What's your point of view? I actively engage and demonstrate when I know there are people that naturally aren't going to say something. I was able to spend a few years in China, actually, and I learned a lot, right? When I went to China, that was a whole different world because they weren't sure how to look at me. Was she Indian or was she American? What is she, right? So that was the first battle in the cultural differences. But learning, like, coming in as an American headset, no one said anything. It was very quiet in the rooms, right? Learned so much. So putting yourself in those shoes, I think, Blaney, right, and being the leader in the room and acting on those. But that's why I said create the village. One of my visions here is I've never openly had this type of a conversation at Ford Motor Company in 20 plus years. I've never done it. I don't know that I would have done it 2 years ago. But something in me said, I'm not the only one. I can't be the only one. It's time to speak up. It's time It's time that we just helped each other. We talk about our village as a community, and I felt like there's a lack of that community talking about things that I'm pretty sure many of us are going through. So I think that's step one.
If I could add a little bit to that, and also, maybe address the question in the chat. I think someone asked how can non-Asian or non-female as ally help, right? So I think it's two ways, like both from Asians, what we can do. Well, we already gave a lot of suggestions earlier, really inspiring strategies, and also to build on Prima's point here. No matter you are at a leader position, leader is not entitled or is not given. You could take initiatives. Everyone should take initiatives to behave like a leader, right? So as Asian ourselves, we should step out of our comfort zone, step up to let others know, to give others opportunity to learn and understand us. Then from the other side, non-Asian or non-females, I think there are two things, like if allies really want to help. One, on the opposite to the early suggestion there, start to understand people from different culture, different background. For example, knowing that Asian females are raised in that way. It's not because we're quiet or we're not capable. It's just because we were told to be quiet. That's the right way when we grow up. And then secondly, I would say also to build on Prima's point earlier, to recognize people, to call out, to give credit to those like Asians or females in your group. When you build on someone's question or someone's point, just to say, hey, thanks for Prima's point, which is really helpful, right? And or recognize, hey, Prima pointed out, or even that someone in the group that might have really good answers, but they are too shy to talk about it. Give the floor to them to say, hey, Greenie has a really great point. Let's hear from her. So that will help a ton. I would say like that will give the people in the group so much motivation. They know that they are inspired, they are appreciated, and they will be encouraged to do that, like repeat that behavior more and more.
It helps build confidence, right?
And to add to your point, especially in the virtual working environment, it's really hard for me as an Asian woman to chime in a WebEx conversation or in a Zoom meeting because we are trained to never interrupt other people. So I always wait for a nice quiet silence before I put in my thoughts, which never happens. So what I usually do is I either put my thoughts in the chat, and then sometimes some kind person will be like, hey, Glennie has a great point. Would you like to talk more about it? That would be a really great things that you do as allies to help us. And then another thing is I turn on my camera, and sometimes you'll see me like about to jump in or like say something, but like never get the point across. And sometimes a kind colleague will say like, Glennie, you look like you're about to say something. What is it that you're trying to share? So those are two concrete things that you can really help as allies.
Okay. Wonderful points. Just to add on to that, so another topic which people are talking about is men as allies, right? So can you briefly talk about how we can help to move the needle here?
I want to share a really great man ally that I have, Stefan Mueller-Urbaniak. He is the director of OCIO in IT. And he is my mentor for a program called IT Leadership Program. And a concrete way that he is an ally for me is when it comes time for me to graduate from the program and looking for my next role, he actively supported me in two ways. One, in helping me see how my experience apply to other roles that I might not consider. So going back to Yvette's point, helping me to apply to those roles that I might not think that I've qualified for, but indeed I have 2 or 3 out of the 5 requirements. And then 2, he actively asked for his network as well to consider me for some of the opportunities, which essentially he is extending his network on my benefit. And that's something that I consciously has been trying to do as a mentor, to use my network to help my mentee, and whereby I'm extending my network for my mentees.
Right, great. Looks like we just have such a wonderful discussion. We are running out of time. Quickly, should we touch upon, any work from home strategies? How has the home hybrid environment impacted people? And we can wrap it up.
Yeah, that might be a whole nother conversation, Shri.
I think so too.
It really is. I'll leave everybody with a funny story or experience that I had. So, you're right, we get up, we go to work, and reality is we go to work and we're one person, and we come home and many times we're a different person. We have extended family, we have, moms and dads and children and all these things happening. So one experience I had coming back working from home is my office is down in the basement. My mom always worried about my long drive to work. I've been doing it for 20 years, but she still worries about it. So she was very excited that you don't have to drive to Dearborn. This is so wonderful. So she was very happy. And then we all, came a little bit out of COVID. And I remember the one day, I'm in my office, I have my camera on, and my mother she's bent over. She's already short like me, but for some reason she wasn't clear that the camera was showing the whole room, and she was bent over as if she was hiding and trying to give me my roti for lunch. And I didn't know what to do with that. So, who would have ever thought my mom was in my work environment, right? So she didn't recognize Mom, I'm on a video, I'm on a call, and I'm in supply chain. I do negotiations. This is not it. So I'll leave you with that. It's been a great adjustment. Many times I walk out of my office and, there's a couch there and my mother's there. Nothing I would have ever imagined. So we'll maybe have to have another session, Shri, on that.
We should. I know we are out of time. Sushila has posted a quick survey. We'll also try to send an email. But this was wonderful. Thanks everyone for your time. Like Prima said, we should do it again. Any closing words, Prima?
No, actually, please do take the survey. I think you've hopefully picked up on the fact that I actually would like to do a series. If people have interest, please, I encourage you to give us your feedback. Thank you so much for the opportunity today. Yvette, Mark, great partnerships, rocket speed. I love it. So hopefully we can do it again. Thank you.
Thank you. This was awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for hosting, Shri.
Thank you.
Yes.